The Maple Leafs head out to Boston for a game tonight. We'll preview that and also let you know what's going on at the GM meetings and what Kyle Dubas has been squawking about down in Boca Raton. And we'll do that all on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike Distefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me is my co-host, it's Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can now catch us on video on YouTube. That's Locked On Leafs. And just a reminder, we're close. We are more than halfway to our goal of 500 subs. And once we get there, we will be giving away a prize. And it's this bad boy right here. We're giving away an Austin Matthews, Tim Hortons collectible stick. And I have not opened the seal on this yet, David. And for those who are watching via YouTube, which is how you become eligible for this, the seal is still on it. So this could be an autographed stick by Austin Matthews, and I wouldn't even know. There's a chance to find a golden superstar stick, and so that's a possibility. And all you have to do is follow us Locked On Leafs on YouTube, subscribe, and like and comment on all of our stuff that we put out, but make sure that you are subscribed. And once we hit the 500, I'll let you know exactly how we'll be going about doing the giveaway. But pretty neat. We're almost there. I hope that we're there fairly soon. So go ahead, if you haven't already, go head to YouTube, hit subscribe, and get yourself entered in for that prize.
And I'll just say on top of that, I know people are like, but it's a stick. This is 500 subscribers. I myself have something big planned for 1,000.
Ooh.
I'm not even going to give it away right now because it's actually really good. But I have some people like, he doesn't know. I actually was thinking about this the other day. I got something that I think a lot of Leafs fans would love to get their hands on if we get 1,000.
I know you've got a bunch of stuff out there, and if it's what I'm thinking it is, it's certainly something that Leaf fans will want 1,000%.
I'll just say this. It is not this John Tavares picture behind me. This is autographed. It's worth quite a bit of money, and it was a gift, so I can't part with it.
I didn't think it was that.
But I do have something along that line that I think a lot of people will appreciate.
Make sure that you're subbed up and make yourself eligible for the 500 sub gift, and then hopefully we can get to 1,000 subs pretty quickly, so you can get that gift as well, or that prize, I suppose, as well. All right, today is going to be an interesting episode. So the Toronto Maple Leafs going to be in Boston, just one quick game to Boston, and then they're back home for a quick game against the Jets on Thursday, and then out to Philly on Saturday. So it's a bit of an interesting week that's going to be going on here. But when it comes to the Maple Leafs, saying tonight's game is going to be important, obviously, because there's some playoff positioning on the line when it comes to the Boston Bruins. They very quickly caught right up to the Maple Leafs when they went under a little bit of a dry spell there when it was supposed to be a soft schedule. And now you got to win games against some tough opponents. You got 2 games against the Bruins. They got 2 games against the Lightning, and they got 2 more games against the Panthers. Tough sledding the rest of the way. And tonight is going to be a big one. But before we get into the game and we preview it, we should start off by just sending out our condolences to the Melnyk family and all of Senators Nation, the organization, their friends, families, fans. Eugene Melnyk, the owner of the Ottawa Senators, had passed away. And he was battling a sickness for quite some time and finally, or just unfortunately was not able to fight it any longer and passed away at the age of 61. So just want to say condolences to the Melnick family and all the friends and family and the Senators organization.
Yeah, someone that helped the Senators when they were at a very tough time in their organization's history. And I know some people here in Toronto that have gone to know Eugene Melnick actually and the work he's done here. I know a few weeks ago with everything that's going on in Ukraine, he really wanted to drive up support for it as well. So even during his, I mean, just a thing, a few weeks ago, he was talking about this, and we had no idea he was really dealing with an illness. So it just goes to show that Eugene was thinking about other people while he was battling his own illness. So yeah, definitely a sad time for our friends out in Ottawa.
Yeah, and Eugene Melnick didn't have the best reputation in the hockey world for how he went about his business dealings a lot of the time. Often, known as one of the cheaper owners in the league, but at the end of the day, you can't help but feel sorry for those around him who are going to be suffering from this loss. So we did want to reach out just to our friends over at Locked On Sens as well, who I'm sure will probably do a bit more of a deeper dive into conversation into what Eugene Melnick meant to that organization. So maybe go check out our friends at Locked On Sens, to hear a little bit more about Eugene Melnick and his involvement in the city of Ottawa and what he meant to hockey and the Senators. So not an easy transition off of that, but going on down in Florida right now are the GM meetings, and Kyle Dubas is down there. Pierre Dorian, I'm sure, is down there right now. Or in fact, I know he's down there unless he's gone back to Ottawa for obvious reasons. And every other general manager in the hockey league is down there as well. And this is typically a time where they get a chance to kind of chat about some different things that they want to implement in the future, or some issues that maybe some teams have kind of pinpointed. And a couple of the things that are on the docket for this week at the GM meetings is the potentially installing a playoff cap in the future. We've talked about this before. Also, we discussed this last week. I think it was when we did like our cosign no sign about this, but we can go into it a little bit again in just a moment. LTI and like going in with the playoff cap is like not circumventing it with LTIR cap space in a way that you can't have the Kucherov and the Kucherov situation happen again, or the Patrick Kane situation, and what some believe to be the current Mark Stone situation or Alec Martinez situation that's going on in Vegas as we speak. So there's another kind of thing that's going to get tackled this week at the GM meetings, and of course, as always, officiating. And that's a big one for the league and for the Leafs specifically, because Kyle Dubas was quite vocal when it came to officiating. It's not that he came out and he bashed them, but he did have some choice words and kind of, say, oh, it's kind of interesting how a player like Austin Matthews, who plays with such dominance on the puck, has only drawn 9 infractions this season, which puts him in a tie for 304th in the NHL. Yeah, there's some conversations that might need to be had there, because that just doesn't seem logical.
Yeah, no. And look, what the thing with the Leafs is, a lot of people are just going to be like, this is Leafs fans complaining about their bad luck has been because of officiating. Well, there's legitimate qualms about it, because when you look at where the plays have occurred, like the one against Arizona remains the biggest, like literally non-Leafs fans. When non-Leafs fans,
Chikrin's father probably says, yeah, that's definitely a penalty. I can't believe my boy got away with that one. Like, that's how egregious that was.
oh yeah, like if anything, I'm surprised Jacob Chikrin didn't just like score and then get off the ice, so they don't even try to take it away. It's like when you get away with something, you don't want to bring attention to it.
Go ahead. Yeah,
sorry, exactly. we got the win, guys. Let's get out of here.
Let's get at it.
Yeah, and then other people just like, if you complain about the refs, that's not exactly going to help your position either. Well, what do you expect? Do you think just staying silent is going to do anything? Like, it doesn't work that way. If you have an issue, you got to bring it up at the right times. And when you have the director of officiating there and you just had a meeting with them, that's the time to talk about it. So I think it's quite interesting some of the comments that Dubas made, especially about Austin Matthews, and saying that he's surprised given the way Austin Matthews plays, because Austin Matthews does not make it easy on defenders. He is a
Oh,
tough cookie to play against. So the fact that defenders have to find ways to shut him down, and usually it's not legal, I think Kyle Dubas has some qualms. Like, if you rather Kyle Dubas be the one to do it than Austin Matthews be the one to do it. And I think that play against Arizona was the only time I have ever really seen him go at a ref the way
yeah.
he did.
Yeah, he typically doesn't really beak at the officials, and that one specifically, he let the ref know that he was not happy with the fact that that went uncalled, and I think that was for good reason because it was extremely blatant, and it cost them the game quite literally because that was on the game-winning goal. And then you can even go back. You don't have to go back to the game against Arizona. You can go back to the game against on Saturday against the Montreal Canadiens. This one was more of a 50-50 play, and that one I'm not going to really fault the officials, but that did cause a stir amongst some of the Leaf fans where it's another play that could have been an interference call or some sort of tripping call, and it results in the game-winning goal instead, right? Like Matthews gets kind of tripped up, gets taken off the puck, interfered with, and Byron goes down the other way and scores a game winner. And again, there's a large segment of Leafs Nation that believe that should have been a penalty. I think we talked about it in yesterday's show, kind of a 50-50 type of thing. But at the end of the day, that's another example of look, this is a player who doesn't get any of those 50-50 calls, apparently, if he's only getting 9 penalties called against him. And if you're wondering, well, how many is that? I can't equate that because I'm not exactly sure. Connor McDavid has had 44 penalties called on him this season. He's drawn 44 penalties this season. 44 for McDavid and 9 for Matthews. I mean, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering that they're two of the most puck dominant players in the National Hockey League. They should be similar. Maybe not, if McDavid had 44 and Matthews had 38, let's say, would it be a problem? I think that would be possible. But 44 and 9, 304th in the NHL in penalties drawn. Come on. That's just poor officiating. It's got to be. It's got to be. There's no way that players just play Matthews cleanly. Not a chance.
Let's just say if Austin Matthews was in the NBA, this wouldn't even be close to an issue, because we know in the NBA, stars get the calls, because if you're keeping the
Well,
stars,
I don't know. Did you see the Raptors game last night?
boy,
They weren't getting calls. They won. They won the game. They were not getting calls though, man. And they weren't getting any calls in the offensive end. And then for whatever reason, they were calling softies on the Raptors on the defensive side of things. Officiating was an issue there as well. But go on. You're correct. You're correct.
but if ever watch LeBron James play,
Oh,
LeBron James,
little baby.
yeah, people, LeBron. So I'm I would be, LeBron James gets the referees benefit of the doubt quite a bit. That doesn't happen in the NHL. The NHL superstars, we're not asking for the refs to protect them, but guess what? If you're making it easy to defend against them because you're able to hook, slash,
I don't
basically,
I don't know if I agree with that because you look at who's at the top of the list and it's Connor McDavid. So he does get the benefit of those calls. Those 50-50 calls do get called on
on
McDavid.
him. But
And
who else is in that conversation with them?
well, Michael Bunting is
Yeah,
right up
that's
there with
the
him as
problem.
well. Yeah, no, you're right.
See, Connor McDavid, the other thing too is when the guy reaches 50 kilometers an hour on his skates, how are you stopping him? You're gonna have to hook him. You have to trip him. You have to do something because you can't stop him because he's so fast. Austin Matthews is a different style player where he is just a physical freak in that you just can't body him. You can't do that against him. So you're gonna have to find other ways. And yeah, and the fact that Austin Matthews is able to be as productive as he is, knowing that opposing players are able to get in those extra slashes or hooks, And like we've seen examples of it. It's not something we're just imagining either. Just so other people who are watching this are going to try to comment and say, "Oh, look, you guys just trying to make up stuff." No, this has been documented. Jeffler, big one on Twitter. He's pretty much have got a whole breakdown on the officiating against the Leafs and
I
how
haven't heard. Yeah,
he's got a pretty good breakdown. The Leafs versus other top teams in the league, it's not even close.
yeah.
And it's not just Austin Matthews, I will say.
I haven't heard someone refer to him as Jeffler in quite some time. I'll say that.
Monsieur Veillette.
Yes, it's been a while
I
since
call
I've
him
heard
Jeffler just because
someone.
that's how people know him.
Well, for years that's what he went by. I guess was Jeffler, right? Like that was his original Twitter, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty
That's how I
sure.
first found him.
Yeah,
That's how I first caught his attention when I met him in person the first time.
Jeffler. I've never met the guy in person. I would imagine he's a rather nice fella, but I have not. I wonder if he's a betting guy.
I don't
I
think
wonder if
so.
he's a betting guy. If he's
I know
not, we're gonna have to make him a betting guy. And we're going to have to tell them to go check out betonline.net. After months of playing, college basketball has determined the top teams for the Final Four and will determine this year's national champion this coming week. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info from all the latest odds, contests, and player props. You name it. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your latest scores, sport developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. And that's right, even hockey. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into Locked On Leafs. I'm Mike Distefano. With me, I've got Dave Morassutti. We're the co-hosts, the hosts here of the Locked On Leafs podcast. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts through the audio version, and you can also find us video version on YouTube. And once again, we'll be doing a giveaway once we get to 500 subs, and then also once we get to 1,000 subs. So make sure to get yourself included in that giveaway. You go and you subscribe to us, Locked On Leafs, on Twitter or on YouTube and on Twitter for that matter. All right. Why don't we get into this Leafs and Bruins preview for tonight? Because this is a pretty big game. Leafs and Bruins currently tied in the standings right now for that third and final divisional spot. Currently, it says they're 3-4 based on ROW. The Leafs have the tie break here, and they won earlier in the season, so they've got the tie break as of now. But game 2 of the year between these two going down, just the second time ever that Sheldon Keefe will be playing the Boston Bruins. I find that astounding. The fact that this is like the guy's been coaching his team since 2019, and it's just the second time they'll be playing the Bruins. Isn't that crazy?
It's such a weird way the schedule's laid out. Like sometimes they'll play all their games against Boston earlier in the year, and then it's just like you don't see the Bruins anymore. Like it's just so weird. The teams change so much during the season that it's just like, man, like when the Leafs played the Bruins in like November, that was totally like 3 years ago in like our eyes versus then and now. Like Jack Campbell was the goaltender when we last played the Bruins. Like it's such a like they were still talking about Tuukka Rask coming back in Boston at that time. Jeremy Swayman was splitting time with Linus Ullmark. Like such a weird transition between what we think of the Bruins back in November, where they weren't exactly top 3 worthy in many people's eyes, and now they win and they beat the Leafs and they're top 3 again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that's rolling right now. They've won 4 in a row. They just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 3-2. That was a hell of a game. And now they're coming in. They got another playoff-esque matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they've been playing some hard hockey of late, and Toronto's going to have to try and match it. Now, if they can play a similar game that the way that they played against Florida, just kind of a low-event game and allow their stars and special teams to shine through, I think that they'll have some success. I think they will. But at the same time, they got to shut down Marchand. They got to shut down Pasternak, who's been elite right now. Not sure who their starter is going to be, but Jeremy Swayman has been one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. He's got like a 938 save percentage ever since he became like the number one, or ever since Tuukka Rask officially retired. You can even say since the All-Star break in that area. He's got like a 936 save percentage. It's unbelievable. He's like 11-1-1. He's been such an amazing goalie. Not sure if he's going to get the start or if it's going to be Omark. That has not yet been announced. But
I think it's been confirmed that Swayman's starting.
oh, has it been confirmed?
Yeah.
I didn't see that it was confirmed there. Beautiful. So it looks like Jeremy Swayman is going to get the start. So never mind.
Which is not ideal, by the way. You're going to get the Bruins at their best with their best goalie. So
Yeah, which is actually the opposite of what happened with the Florida Panthers, where they got their B goalie. But regardless, so it's going to be a tough game. I mean, like I said, has been a terrific goaltender. The question is, if you're Toronto, you roll back with Peter Mrazek, or are you going with Shalgren? Like, who's getting the net here? I personally, I mean, I asked this somewhat facetiously because I don't think there's much of a discussion. Like, I think you got to go back to Mrazek after a couple of decent starts here.
yeah, I definitely think so. I think it said something that he got the Florida start and he had his best game of the season. Like that's not an easy team to go against. So I feel like if you're a Leafs fan, take some comfort knowing that he did very well against the best offensive team in the NHL. You know, Boston's still a good team, but Florida has they're firing like it's 1995 right now. So I think Mrazek definitely deserves the vote of confidence going into this game. And this could potentially be the last game before Jack Campbell comes back. So this is a very important game for Peter Mrazek right now to keep himself in the conversation going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, there's been some discussions about Mrazek getting sent back down to the minors for cap purposes when Jack Campbell comes back, just because Chagra would be cheaper. Like, he's a league minimum goaltender, and Mrazek would count for 1.15 against the cap, or 1.125, or whatever the minimum cap number is. So you could save like a few $100,000 by keeping Shalgren up. So if you don't want that to happen, you got to prove yourself to be indispensable, Mr. Mrazek. And all you got to do is play the exact same way that you played the last couple of games in New Jersey and in Florida. Because I think the way that this team is playing, they're buying in. They're finally getting back to that like defensive, systems where they're not giving up a whole lot. They're deep. They're well balanced defensively now with the additions of Labushkin and with Giordano. So I like what we're seeing, and the solid defending is helping the goaltending as well. And I know that it was a fun little, Shalgren had a couple of good games there, but at the end of the day, this is a player who the Maple Leafs invested a lot of money into, and they'd be best off if he was successful. Like, not only for the fact that you want to be successful this season, but then it also probably increases and boosts his trade stock if you do want to move him in the offseason. So it's kind of two-pronged why you want Mrazek to be the guy, or be the guy in terms of the legitimate number two backup, at least going forward, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the worst thing that happened for the Leafs and Mrazek is that he was just not playing so well that even when they put him on waivers, nobody wanted him, right? But there will be teams looking for goaltending in the offseason. And, if they don't want to spend a lot and they're willing to take the contract, the Leafs will happily, I think, move Mrazek just because they really just don't have much. Like, they got to find money for other things. So Mrazek is the likely first domino to fall in that case. So, but I mean, this is also just Mrazek. Right now, the focus should just be we don't know how Jack Campbell's going to respond coming back from injury. So even before we say Jack Campbell, that Peter Mrazek's done, let's also not like Jack Campbell's no sure thing right now with his injury history.
Nope.
So Mrazek, they need him. They need NHL quality goaltending. Eric Shalgren was definitely a good story. I thought he was pretty good in Montreal, minus that third goal. But he's also a guy that hasn't been in a lot of these types of games. So we can't totally put everything on him. It wouldn't be fair to him.
Yeah, and look, I think he's going to be tested in this game. Like I know, I felt that he would have been tested against Florida because they're a team that's always like they're currently what are they second in the league in expected goal for expected goal for differential. And what are they? They're like the top team, second in expected goals for. And then you take a look at the Boston Bruins, like they're up there too, and they're tops in the league in the expected goal for differential. They do a good job scoring, and they do an even better job of permitting goals. They're the number one defensive team in the league, which is interesting because they went and they added to their defense in a guy like Hampus Lindholm, but just that the entire team defense just completely buys in. So this is going to be a pretty solid game, and one that Toronto is going to have to bring their big boy pants to try and get the victory. I just it's going to be a difficult one, and if you take a look at the talk about BetOnline.net, take a look at what's going on in the betting sphere. The Maple Leafs are actually the underdog, so Boston favored to win this game, minus 130 on the money line. So if you think that Toronto can pull off the upset, I mean, you can get them at plus money at plus 110. And it looks like as of now, a lot of the sharp money is coming in on the Maple Leafs, and they feel like Toronto could stop Boston's 4-game winning streak. But I'll say this. The Leafs are 0-4 in their last 4 games as road dogs, whereas Boston 4-0 in their last 4 home games overall. So a couple of trends that don't look too kindly for the Maple Leafs in the game tonight.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the Bruins and what are some of the things the Leafs are going to have to do against the Bruins to keep them kind of at bay, may I start with one David Pastrnak?
Yeah, that would be ideal to
Guy has
stop that
been
guy.
guy still has been a thorn in the sides of a lot of NHL teams. Eric Holla, he's having a sneaky good season there. They still got Taylor Hall. Thank you.
Bergeron's back. He came back over the
Yeah,
weekend to play the game against the Islanders. He was off for about 10 days, so he's back. So that
Brad
makes it a lot more
Marchand,
difficult.
enemy number one.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a game I'm really excited to see Eli Lyubushkin get in because this is like
Mm.
I just want to see him, line up guys for hits. We know that's the Bruins game. They like to play physical. The Leafs have been playing a lot more physically lately. I don't know if you saw, like with Lyubushkin there, with
Oh, yeah.
Giordano, even with Timothy Liljegren. I think had like 5 hits against the Panthers. I don't know if you saw the hit he laid on Mason Marchman.
Oh, yeah.
People were sending that to me. I was like, he's ready for this type of game.
Mason Marchman also ran into his own player at one point in that game too. Wasn't the best game for Mason Marchman, but it made a lot of Leaf fans feel good about themselves that he didn't have a great game that night. Tell you what, I got one more question for you about this game. Then I have a bit of a take for you. Something that was discussed today. Well, I wasn't. Yeah, I discussed a little bit on Leafs lunch today, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Has to do with one William Nylander. And I'll tell you about that when we return. But Dave, why don't you tell us about the good folks at Rock Auto?
Yes, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the car parts you need. Why endure the pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand that they carry? You have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So saving time and money when using Rock Auto. It is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have reliably low prices for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in the How Did You Find It? Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On NHL podcast, Locked On Leafs podcast. I did the Locked On NHL show earlier today. That's why I had that little slip up. Did it with Ross Levitan. We do it each and every Tuesday. It is the Eastern Conference edition. So if you're finished up Locked On Leafs, you can go and check that out, the Locked On NHL show, where we go in depth about what's going on in the Eastern Conference as a whole. But this is Locked On Leafs. I'm Mike Distefano, Dave Morassutti, my co-host. We are the best and only and daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast out there. You can get us wherever you want, audio version, wherever you get your podcast. Also, you can find us on video on YouTube as well. Locked On Leafs is where we can be found. Couple of things that I want to discuss. The first thing I want to get to, I guess I want to ask you this question before we wrap things up with the Leafs and Bruins preview, I suppose. Nick Abruzzese, does he play tonight? C or no?
I'm gonna go with C.
Bene.
I want. Well, first off, make sure they take him to a nice Italian restaurant, get him fed that nice bowl of pasta before the game.
I don't think they'll have that issue in Boston.
No, I don't think so. I've heard some. I was actually in Boston not too long ago, before pandemic stuff happened. Good Italian food in Boston. Not going to be an issue there. But I think, yes, they had a good game against the Panthers, but I do think there are ways you can improve this team, especially the fourth line. I think this is, would you like to have a Wayne Simmons against the Bruins? Sure. But you also need to think about, you don't want that fourth line when it's a road game to be a matchup nightmare. Right?
I mean, you could have Simmer in there and take out Spezza.
This is also true because Colin Blackwell can play center.
Or even Nick Abruzzese. Abruzzese played center when he was at Harvard. Yeah, they both can. You probably don't want him to play center in his first game in the NHL, so probably do move over Blackwell. But there's the option there.
Yeah, I even think Spezza. You know what? Like, I understand the nostalgia around Jason Spezza, but also you need to win these games.
Yeah.
And I think Jason Spezza wouldn't have a problem if they feel like they're going with the best lineup at that point.
It's just it'd be such a Sheldon Keefe-esque thing to do. Abruzzese played his collegiate career at Harvard. He's got friends and family, I'm sure, in the building. I would expect for him to play tonight. I think I would expect that. Jack Campbell expected to join the team in practice today. Don't anticipate him playing. Perhaps Thursday against the Jets, if not Saturday against the Flyers, could be Jack Campbell's return to the crease. So it will be Peter Mrazek, we believe, between the pipes tonight. I'd be surprised if it was not. All right, getting away from, it kind of has to do with the game, actually. A player that I am really keying in on, that I'm going to watch tonight with literally 5 eyes. Like, I'm just going to create extra eyes on my head to get all 5 looks at this guy. I know. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's almost midnight. I'm getting delirious, apparently. But William Nylander, Willie, to me, really needs to have a strong game tonight. He got called out by the coach after Saturday night's performance against Montreal. Terrible back check. Ended up getting sent down to the third line and then was demoted to stick on the third line against Florida. He played okay, wasn't terrible. Keefe apparently likes, his compete level at the very least in his own end, which I guess is good to see. But I think that he's going to have a big game tonight and come out and play well and be a bit of a difference maker on that third line and force his way back up into the top 6. Because if he comes out and has a bit of a stinker, Dave, this is the question that I want to ask you. If you want to get this guy going and get him motivated, would it be too harsh of a message to send to have this player, if he has a bad game, get healthied against the Jets on Thursday?
Ooh.
You see what's going on with Sean Monahan?
Yes. No, for sure. And I think Sheldon Keefe is at there's like a line you're at with a player. Sheldon Keefe has got like both feet on that line and he's like falling over a little bit and he doesn't want to do it to William Nylander because he knows the pressure is on him right now. This microscope is on him.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this before that, yeah, you can kind of take away his ice time like they did by putting him in the third line. You can try to take him off the first power play unit to really send a message. I just feel like he's going to try all those things before he eventually has to sit him. Like if he has a terrible game, then I think Sheldon Keefe, you leave it kind of out of Sheldon Keefe's hands a little bit there. I think it all depends on how bad it goes.
Oh,
Like,
I agree. I agree. Like if he has a similar game to the way he did against Florida, I don't think he'll lose. But if he plays similarly to the way he did in Montreal, then it's a different conversation. Like if he just goes out there thinking he's got some free ice skating session out there in the middle of a hockey game, then I think that a conversation could be had. And you're right. Maybe Thursday's a little bit too soon. Maybe you dock the power play time first. You kick him from first unit to second unit, and if that doesn't wake him up, then what do you do? And then at that point, maybe the next step would be to potentially, get the healthy scratch. I mean, it's not something that's insanely uncommon for a good player to get healthy scratch just to kind of give his head a shake. And I wonder if that's what Willie needs. We do know that he needs to be motivated to be pushed. And if he's not motivated by a demotion to the third line, a demotion to power play 2, a demotion maybe even to the fourth line, perhaps. I mean, maybe at some point here, the way to get through to the player is to sit him up in the press box for a game. It could go the opposite way, where that could just create a big rift. I mean, he's an NHL player. I'm sure he's got quite the ego on him, just because most pro athletes do. Like in a good way, like they just feel so strongly about their game. Not that he's, like an egotistical person. But at some point, if it gets to, where the message isn't getting through, I wonder if that is an approach that Sheldon Keefe could take. I'm not saying it could happen early, so I'll take back my by Thursday. But at some point, like if this message doesn't go through and Willie doesn't pick it up on a consistent basis, I don't know. I feel like that could considerably could that be an option? I don't know.
you need to make sure that Nylander understands that the playoffs are not around the corner. You can't just flip a switch, right? There's got to be some, like he went through some of this stuff last year too, and then he put it together. But it's gonna get tougher. Like there's I understand it's hard to sustain, over an 82 game season, but that's what he gets paid to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like at this rate, like I don't have as much. I have sympathy for when it's unfair criticism, but right now there is fair criticism, especially when he points it out himself.
Yeah. And I was listening, another kind of interesting little tidbit of information. Listening to Overdrive today, and Chris Johnston, CJ, insider for TSN, and I believe he writes for the Toronto Star as well. He has a
Yep.
weekly column there. He said, and he came out and said, I am not reporting this. I have not heard this. It's just a gut feeling that it could be the final year with the core four. One of those guys will be moved this offseason, win, lose, or draw, just based on the cap. Like, it's just, they're going to have to move on from one of them. And again, he's not reporting it, so it's not like he hasn't heard anything. It's just his inkling. He thinks it might happen, and I have to agree, especially if they lose in the first round of the playoffs for sure. One of 5 guys are gone. That's Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, or Kyle Dubas. One of those guys are gone if they lose for round 1. And I think there's one specifically that seems more likely than the rest, and that would be William Nylander. I guess. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dave? Before we wrap up,
I think part of the reason why it's always been pointing the finger at Nylander for a couple of reasons. One, John Tavares has a no movement clause, so you can't just trade away a John Tavares even if you want to. He'd have
he's
to
your
sign off
captain.
on it.
Also your captain.
He's also your captain. It's kind of important. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews have proven this season that they are, a lot better than they were in past years. Like they've taken their games to another level. William Nylander is the easiest to trade. whether people like his contract is not bad for what he does. It's just when you look at how he fits this team and what this team needs, it hasn't been there consistent enough. So I can see that. So we're not asking for the Leafs to trade William Nylander, but at some point when the mix is not right, something has to give. And we've seen teams make tough decisions. That's just the way it goes when it comes to your desire to win, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. And there will be teams lining up, I think, to trade for William Nylander. It's just I think this is the biggest test for Kyle Dubas is how far does your loyalty extend? And that's gonna be the biggest question.
He did tell Will that as long as he's there, he wouldn't trade him because he wasn't able to get a clause in his contract, right? Wasn't
just
able to
can't
get it
do
because he
that.
was still an RFA. I don't know. So we'll see. How much is his word? Is he gonna? What's the saying there? Or no, what's the move? Jerry Maguire or the dad from Jerry Maguire, the
Yeah.
quarterback the night before the draft, flipped and went with his opposition agent, and after saying his word was as strong as oak, yeah, word means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You need the
People
clause.
have to live up to that promise as well, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. That's a very good point too. You know, Willie's would be at fault too because if he played the way that he played, if he's played all year the way he played last season, the playoffs, and also at pockets early this season, he was the best, one of the best, most consistent Maple Leafs, maybe the first 6 weeks or so. If he played like that all throughout, there's no conversation there. You know,
No.
there's no reason to trade Willie. But if he's playing the way that he is, the way that he has over the last 2 months, I mean, I saw a statistic yesterday that John Tavares and William Nylander have combined for 4 less goals than Michael Bunting in the last 30 games. Michael Bunting is making $950,000 as a rookie in the National Hockey League, has 4 more goals than Nylander and Tavares combined at 5-on-5 in the last 30 games.
Yeah.
Big
So
sample.
yeah, and look, and we saw how John Tavares plays when he's not with William Nylander, and it's better.
Yeah.
Like John Tavares has taken a lot of criticism this season. I think a lot of it's been unfair because there's only so much one guy can do on the line. Look at the Marner Matthews Bunting line. If Tavares had anything close to that, this was a guy in his first season who had 47 goals, a career high goals, playing with Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said that if you have the right people to play with, your play elevates. And Tavares has done quite a bit on his own to try to get things going, and only so much he can do.
So what do you do? What do you do, Dave? Do you break up the top 6 entirely? Do you flip Mitch and Willie? Or do you put Willie down on the third line? Do you have that $7 million player on your third line? You know, it's tough decisions that Sheldon Keefe's going to have, and we haven't even gotten into what this team and what this defensive core is going to look like once everybody's healthy as well, because that's going to be some difficult decisions to be made, especially the way that Timothy Liljegren has played of late since Mark Giordano's come over. That pairing has looked really, really good so far. All right, Dave, I think we'll leave it there, pal. Should be a fun game tonight. It's an important game. That's for sure. Playoff positioning on the line. Leafs and Bruins tonight. The game is at, what time's the game at? 7 or 7:30?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. It is at 7 o'clock tonight. Again, should be a really, really fun game to watch. So watch it. Watch it. And then later that day, or tomorrow, I suppose, we'll be back for a preview episode or a post-game episode between the Leafs and the Bruins. All right, that's going to do it for me here today because it's past midnight. I'm starting to not make sense with my speech. Got to get to bed here, Dave. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Maple Leafs content. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Leafs. Follow myself at Make_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And again, follow us on YouTube. subscribe, Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you tomorrow. We will go over the game and break down everything that happened between the Beans and the Leafs. Until then, though, keep it locked right here on Locked